What if I told you that one woman's wisdom saved an entire household from destruction and changed the course of history? Abigail's story is one of the most overlooked yet powerful accounts in the Bible. Her quick thinking, courage, and grace not only preserved lives, but placed her in the lineage of royalty. But there's more to her story than you've ever heard. Stay with me as we uncover shocking details that will leave you in awe. And before we dive in, be sure to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss more eye-opening Bible stories. Abigail, a name that means the father's joy. In ancient Hebrew culture, names carried deep significance, often reflecting a person's character or destiny. But despite the beauty of her name, Abigail's life was far from joyful, at least in the beginning. She was a woman of remarkable intelligence, wisdom, and beauty, yet she found herself bound to a husband who was her complete opposite. The Bible describes Abigail as intelligent and beautiful, 1 Samuel 25:3, but her husband Nabal was known for being harsh and evil in his dealings. He was a wealthy man with large flocks of sheep and goats, but despite his abundance, he lacked the one thing that mattered most: wisdom. Nabal's name itself tells us everything we need to know about his character. In Hebrew, Nabal means fool. Imagine being named something that literally defines recklessness and stubbornness. But this wasn't just an unfortunate label. Nabal lived up to his name. He was arrogant, selfish, and completely blind to the consequences of his actions. Abigail, on the other hand, was a woman of discernment. She wasn't just outwardly beautiful. She possessed an inner strength and wisdom that made her truly extraordinary. But here's something many people overlook. How did a woman like Abigail end up with a man like Nabal? In biblical times, marriages were often arranged, especially among wealthy families. It's highly likely that Abigail had no choice in the matter. Women in that era were considered part of a family's economic and social standing, and marriages were typically made for alliances rather than love. Perhaps her father, seeing Nabal's wealth, thought he was securing his daughter's future. Little did he know that he was marrying her into a life of misery. But here's what's fascinating. The Bible never records Abigail complaining. There's no mention of her cursing her fate, no evidence of bitterness. Instead, we see a woman who, despite being trapped in a difficult marriage, carried herself with dignity, managed her household wisely, and became known for her understanding. This is where her story becomes truly powerful. The Bible tells us that Nabal's wealth was vast. He owned 3,000 sheep and 1,000 goats, and during the time of shearing, his fortune would increase even more. In those days, sheep shearing was like a harvest festival, a time of celebration and generosity. It was common practice for landowners to share their prosperity with others, particularly those who had contributed to their success. This would soon become the setting for one of the most dramatic turning points in Abigail's life. What most people don't realize is that Abigail was not just a passive bystander in her husband's affairs. While Nabal was busy indulging in his own greed, it was Abigail who likely managed the household affairs. She oversaw the servants, handled provisions, and ensured the estate ran smoothly. This would explain why the servants trusted her so much and why, when disaster was about to strike, they turned to her instead of their master. Abigail's true character would soon be revealed in a life or death situation. Nabal's arrogance would push the wrong man too far. That man was David, the anointed future king of Israel. Nabal had everything a man could want: land, wealth, and a thriving household. But despite his riches, he lacked the most important quality of all: wisdom. His arrogance would soon place him and everyone in his household in grave danger. As the time for sheep shearing arrived, it was customary for landowners to show hospitality to those who had assisted them throughout the season. David and his men, though living as fugitives, had been protecting Nabal's shepherds from raiders and wild animals. Without their silent protection, Nabal's flocks could have been stolen or slaughtered. It was an unspoken agreement. David's men provided security, and in return they expected kindness. So, when David sent 10 of his men to humbly request provisions, it was not a demand, it was a reasonable expectation. The message was respectful. Peace be to you, and peace be to your house, and peace be to all that you have. 1 Samuel 25:6. David wasn't asking for riches, only food and drink to sustain his men. But Nabal, true to his nature, responded with mockery and insult. He sneered, "Who is David? Who is the son of Jesse?" 1 Samuel 25:10. His words were not just disrespectful, they were dangerous. By pretending not to know David, Nabal was dismissing the very man whom Israel had already begun to recognize as God's anointed future king. Then, in the height of his arrogance, Nabal accused David of being a mere runaway servant. This was a fatal mistake. Nabal not only denied David's rightful claim to honor, but he also publicly humiliated him. When David's men returned with Nabal's message, David's patience snapped. This was not just an insult. It was an outright challenge. David, a seasoned warrior, had faced giants, armies, and betrayal, but this level of dishonor could not be ignored. Fury consumed him. He didn't hesitate. With swift command, he ordered 400 of his men to arm themselves. Every man, strap on his sword. 1 Samuel 25:13. David's intention was clear. Not one male in Nabal's household would be left alive. The situation was now spiraling into a bloodbath, all because of one man's foolish words. But here's the part that most people overlook. Nabal had no idea what he had done. He had spoken recklessly and then returned to his feast, indulging in wine and excess as if nothing had happened. Meanwhile, the true danger loomed just beyond the hills. David and his warriors were coming, swords drawn, ready to execute judgment. But in the midst of impending doom, a single servant recognized what was about to unfold. This servant knew that Nabal was too stubborn to listen, so instead, he ran to the one person who had the wisdom to act: Abigail. Time was running out. Could Abigail stop the massacre before it was too late? The weight of urgency pressed against Abigail's chest as the servant finished speaking. David and his men were coming, armed, furious, and ready to wipe out every male in Nabal's household. There was no time to argue, no time to reason with her husband, who was likely already deep in his wine. If Abigail did not act immediately, by morning, their home would be nothing more than ashes and bloodstains. She wasted no time. With the precision of a woman accustomed to managing a vast estate, she commanded her servants to gather supplies. 200 loaves of bread, 2 skins of wine, 5 slaughtered sheep, roasted grain, raisins, figs. She ordered them to load everything onto donkeys. This was more than a gift. It was an offering of peace. But what she did next was even more shocking. She left without telling Nabal. In a time when women were expected to be silent and submissive, Abigail chose courage over convention. She understood something that her husband did not. David was no ordinary man. He was God's anointed. To defy him was to defy the divine plan. Abigail saw what Nabal could not. David was destined for the throne, and his anger could not be taken lightly. Riding quickly, the night air cool against her skin, Abigail approached the path where David and his men were descending. She could see them now, 400 warriors, their faces hardened with vengeance, their swords reflecting the glow of the torches. David himself led the charge, his expression dark with righteous fury. As they closed the distance, Abigail did something that no noblewoman would ever dare. She dismounted her donkey and fell face down before David. This was not just an act of submission. It was a desperate plea. With dust clinging to her garments, she raised her voice, speaking with wisdom that would change the course of history. "My Lord, let the blame be on me alone." The words hung in the air like a sudden shift in the wind. David, gripping his sword, hesitated. This was not what he had expected. Abigail continued, her voice steady despite the danger. She acknowledged Nabal's foolishness, but pleaded for mercy. She didn't defend her husband, she simply told the truth. "Please do not let my lord pay attention to this wicked man Nabal. He is just like his name. His name means fool, and folly goes with him." 1 Samuel 25:25. But then, Abigail did something remarkable. She spoke to David's destiny. "The Lord will certainly make a lasting dynasty for my Lord, because you fight the Lord's battles, and no wrongdoing will be found in you as long as you live." 1 Samuel 25:28. Her words were more than flattery. She reminded David of who he was, a man after God's own heart, a future king, someone who did not need to stain his hands with needless bloodshed. And then, with striking wisdom, she warned him, "When the Lord has fulfilled for my Lord every good thing he promised, you will not have on your conscience the staggering burden of needless bloodshed." 1 Samuel 25:30-31. Abigail was not just saving her household, she was saving David from himself. The future king stood still. His breathing slowed. His grip on his sword loosened. Abigail had done the impossible. David, humbled and moved by her words, lowered his weapon. "Praise be to the Lord, the God of Israel, who has sent you today to meet me." 1 Samuel 25:32. In one bold act, Abigail had turned away wrath, saved innocent lives, and redirected a king back to his divine purpose. But her journey was not over yet. She still had to return to Nabal, and the news she was about to deliver would shake him to his core. Abigail rode back home, the weight of the night's events pressing on her. She had stopped a massacre, saved her household, and reminded David of his divine calling. But there was still one matter left unresolved: Nabal. As she entered the estate, the sound of drunken laughter echoed through the halls. There he was, feasting like a king, completely unaware that he had nearly died that night. The household was celebrating as if nothing had happened, wine flowing freely, servants hurrying to and fro. Abigail said nothing. She knew there was no reasoning with a drunken fool. Confronting him now would be pointless. So she waited. By morning, as the sunlight poured over the hills, Nabal awoke from his drunken stupor. His mind was clearer, but his fate had already been sealed. Abigail approached him calmly and told him everything. How David had been moments away from destroying them. How she had gathered an offering and ridden into the night to beg for mercy. How David had relented, but only because of her intervention. The color drained from Nabal's face. He froze in place. His body went rigid, his breath shallow. Shock gripped him like a vice. The Bible describes what happened next in chilling detail. His heart failed him, and he became like a stone. 1 Samuel 25:37. Some believe it was a stroke. Others suggest sheer terror overtook him. Either way, Nabal was a dead man walking. For 10 days, he lingered, unable to move, unable to fight what was coming. Then, the Lord himself struck him down. Nabal died, not by David's hand, but by divine judgment. His arrogance had nearly destroyed his household. His wealth, his power, his stubborn pride, none of it could save him from the justice of God. But while judgment had fallen on Nabal, favor was about to fall on Abigail. When news of Nabal's death reached David, His reaction was not one of personal satisfaction, but of reverence. "Praise be to the Lord, who has upheld my cause against Nabal for treating me with contempt." 1 Samuel 25:39. David recognized that vengeance belonged to God alone. His hands had remained clean, and justice had been served. But then, something unexpected happened. David sent messengers to Abigail, not with words of thanks, but with a proposal. "Come and be my wife." Abigail had gone from the wife of a fool to the bride of a future king. Without hesitation, she accepted. This time, she did not ride in desperation, but in joy. Surrounded by her attendants, she left behind a life of sorrow and entered a future marked by divine favor. Her wisdom had not only saved lives, it had changed her destiny forever. Abigail's journey had taken a dramatic turn. Once the wife of a foolish and arrogant man, she was now the wife of a future king. But her story didn't end with a royal marriage. Her legacy would live on far beyond her lifetime. When she left Nabal's estate, she didn't just leave behind wealth and possessions. She left behind a life of uncertainty, where she had to navigate the reckless decisions of a foolish husband. Now, she was part of something greater, a divine plan unfolding before her eyes. But life as David's wife was not without challenges. David was a man constantly on the move, fleeing from King Saul, leading a band of warriors, and facing battle after battle. Being married to him meant hardship, exile, and danger. Abigail did not enter a palace filled with luxury. She entered a life filled with war camps and uncertainty. Yet she never complained, never resisted. She had chosen this path, knowing that God's anointing was upon David. Unlike Nabal, who dismissed David's calling, Abigail fully believed in it. But there was another challenge. David had other wives. During this time, David was also married to Ahinoam of Jezreel. Unlike Abigail, who was known for her wisdom and discernment, little is said about Ahinoam's role in David's life. Some scholars believe Abigail may have been David's most trusted wife, not just because of her beauty, but because of her intelligence, her ability to navigate difficult situations, and her unwavering faith in God's plan. Yet even as David's wife, Abigail's life was not without suffering. While David and his men were away, a tragedy struck. The Amalekites raided their camp in Ziklag, burning everything to the ground and taking the women and children captive, including Abigail. For a moment, it seemed as if her story would end in devastation. But David did not sit idly by. With God's guidance, he led his men in pursuit of the Amalekites. They fought fiercely, and by God's hand, Abigail was rescued along with the others. It's a powerful moment in her story. She, who had once saved David, was now saved by him. As the years passed and David finally took his place as king, Abigail's name remained a testament to wisdom. While history does not record every detail of her later years, her influence on David's life is undeniable. Her actions had done more than just prevent bloodshed. They had proven that wisdom and discernment could change the course of history. She had shown that a single act of courage, a single moment of stepping into God's plan, could alter destiny. Abigail's story is often overshadowed by the well-known figures of David's life: Goliath, Bathsheba, Saul, Jonathan. Yet her impact was just as profound. She was not just a wise woman, she was a woman of action, a woman of faith, a woman who knew how to hear God's voice and act accordingly. To this day, her name is remembered as a symbol of wisdom, humility, and courage. Her story is a challenge to all of us. Will we step out in faith when the moment calls for it? Will we trust God's plan even when it seems uncertain? Will we choose wisdom over fear? Abigail did. And because of that, her name is written in the pages of history as a woman who changed everything. If this story inspired you, be sure to like, share, and subscribe to the channel for more powerful biblical stories that reveal the hidden gems of Scripture. Comment below with your favorite lesson from Abigail's story. We'd love to hear your thoughts. And remember, God honors those who walk in wisdom and trust in His plan. Just like He did with Abigail, He can turn your trials into triumphs.
Shalom, brothers and sisters. Did you know we have an online store? It's called theroyalremnant.com. We have a variety of clothing and home decor items. Explore our sweatshirts. We have a few different designs and multiple color options. Or navigate to our home decor section and check out our candle designs. We have candles that read Shalom and some that read All Praises to the Most High. If you don't see something you love at the moment, sign up for our email list to learn of new items. Grab your free Bible story coloring pages, and your email will be added to our list. Thank you for your support. It encourages us to keep making content and merchandise to boldly share our faith. Shalom.